Well, first off, Bellator Paris wrapped up. Sum up the night of fights.
I mean, we had some stars born tonight. I think we had some really, really strong standout performances. For me, I mean, Archie Colgan is someone we need to keep an eye on. 9-0, undefeated, a powerhouse wrestler. The power of his shots at close range through the fence. Scary power, scary individual. Slim Trebelsi as well. Got to keep an eye on this guy because he didn't look himself tonight. He said he was injured, dealing with a few things coming into this. He's the kind of person that has the skills to really put a cat among the pigeons in the heavyweight division. And, you know, Louis Sutherland, what was he, 50 pounds heavier than him? And he was talking to us through the fence during the fight and stuff. Like, he was really having a good time in there, but he just couldn't get off the floor, was trapped and stuck, and beautiful work. I just thought we had a strong night tonight. I thought Doumbé looked good. I thought Yves Lando, I've just seen him in the corridor, and I said, dude, you owned it tonight. Like the backflip into the name and flipping up to his feet. Fantastic.
Cedric obviously had the whole crowd on his feet, but one guy I thought really did well, I know he lost, but did well with the crowd, was Jaleel Willis. I thought he really did well with the crowd. Obviously the walkout song was a popular choice, I'm sure, for this card, but walking out there, he's owned being the bad guy, the weigh-ins yesterday, the whole pushing and shoving. Did that fight go kind of as you expected?
You know, I'll be honest, he was a lot more game than I expected him to be. I after the weigh-ins yesterday with the pushing and shoving, I thought to myself, you know, this might be his burst of energy, and then when he walks out into Doumbé's arena in front of his fans, he might not have the same kind of confidence to throw. And he was standing his ground when he could, he was trading when he could. Like, he was throwing a lot more than many people would against Doumbé, especially after what he did against Zebo, right? The danger when you're fighting someone like Doumbé is anytime you throw something in his direction, that is food for him. He's going to eat you up with something. Beautiful counter shots and, you know, very, very quick reactions. I thought Jaleel just came and he rolled the dice and he took his chances and he went out on his shield. You know, it was always going to be a tough fight, and it was always going to be a big ask for him to fly over here and fight Doumbé on his home turf. But I thought he made it a lot of fun. And I think, you know, the pressure that was on Doumbé's shoulders now is not subsided entirely. There's going to still be a lot of pressure, and now he's stepping right up to go to Pettis. And, you know, of course, like, Jaleel did a great job tonight, but where Jaleel is and where Pettis is and who Pettis is, that's a different story entirely, and that's going to be a much, much bigger test for Doumbé.
And in the main event, it was a very close fight. How did you feel that fight went? Who did you think won?
You know, I thought Patchy won. I thought he took 3 rounds out of the 5. There were some really interesting points made by John McCarthy on the broadcast, because we were debating, Chael and Sean and I, we were saying, you know, how do you score this round based on, you know, was the guillotine the most valuable thing in the round? How close was that guillotine to finishing the fight? And then you look at some of the shots that Magomed landed in the first and third round, you know, particularly the first round when he was stepping through with power punches. But I think the mistake that Magomed made is that when he was on the front foot landing shots, he clinched. And every time he gave Patchy time to recover, you know, which, you know, it was a bit of a gift in the circumstance. And I think when Magomed watches it back, he's going to go, I should have thrown a few more there. But that's the pressure of a world title fight, you know. Sometimes you have a little bit of success and you don't want that success to get away from you. So you just kind of hang on for a second. I don't know how he got out of that second guillotine attempt either. I thought that was a foregone conclusion. That was a very, very tight submission.
And my final question, this has nothing to do with Bellator Paris, but your wife is on an amazing win streak, and she just won recently. How are you feeling about her amazing run in these last few fights?
She's inspiring, honestly. It's incredible. The work that she puts in, her diligence, her discipline, it really, really is incredible. You know, I'm just kind of helping out best I can. And, you know, she has to put up with me talking MMA all day anyway, you know what I mean? We're watching this fight, we're talking about this fighter, we're trying these techniques, and, like, she just listens to me constantly, and she'll pick out the good bits and she'll ignore me when I'm talking nonsense, and she takes that into the octagon and she does incredible things with it. And you know, she's had 3 tough opponents. You know, she's had an Ultimate Fighter winner, she's had a big, really, really big undefeated fighter, and then a veteran in JJ Aldrich. I thought she did really well against all 3 of them, and we've not even seen a fraction of what she's capable of.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Dan.
Hey.
We know that the plan is Cedric Doumbé versus Anthony Pettis. Do you have any date or any place who you want to Sorry for my English.
No worries.
Do you have any place or any date for the fight?
We don't have anything locked in. Obviously, we needed to make sure that Doumbé came out of this fight healthy and successful. You know, there was a lot of pressure on him tonight, and I thought it was putting even more pressure on by having Pettis here and, you know, kind of bringing the future into the moment, because like Jaleel Willis was going to be a handful, and he was confident, he was fired up, and then you layer on the fact that, right, I've got to get through this one and Pettis is already waiting for me. That's where Doumbé really thrives. He's able to carry that kind of pressure like nobody else. And when that fight is made, it's going to be fascinating. It really is. I would like it to happen in France. I don't know whether it is. That's not a decision of mine. We've got 2 more events coming up. We're coming back in November for Bellator, and then the Champion Series, the championship for PFL Europe will be in Lyon, which will be a really exciting one. I don't know whether Doumbé fits on either of those cards. I would, of course, love to host him on one of those events, but there's a worldwide demand for Cedric Doumbé, and I think people want to see us travel him outside of France now. Thank you. Hey.
To follow the question, do you think it's the right time for Doumbé to go outside of France?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think if anything, it's going to alleviate some pressure. You know, if he goes out to Riyadh to fight on one of the big pay-per-view cards, he's just another fighter on that card, right? He's going to be sharing that card with other world champions and superstars and people that have achieved a tremendous amount in mixed martial arts. Every time he fights in France, and you know, you could feel the energy in the arena. When Doumbé walked out, that was the people's main event. Like Pachi against Magomed, that was for the MMA fans, people watching around the world. I want to see Doumbé step outside of his comfort zone and not have that rally and support around him, and deal with another tough, dangerous individual in Anthony Pettis.
Anthony Pettis is planning to strike with Cedric Doumbé. Do you think that's the good strategy?
You know, it's difficult to understand what the right strategy is. You've got to remember, like, Anthony Pettis is an elite striker, right? An elite striker, like one of the best that MMA's ever had. Trained at the MMA lab by John Crouch for many, many years, and has held his own with the best fighters around. Can he get the fight to the floor is the question. If he can get the fight to the floor, can he out-grapple Cedric? Yeah, quite possibly. He's got a lot of skills in his game. But I think it might be a massive waste of energy if he goes out there and tries to wrestle with Doumbé. I go back to what he did against Baki, and I know that was a disappointing finish to the fight, but there were lots of things that Doumbé did really well. You know, his ability to get butterfly hooks and scramble, to control the fight on the floor and get back to his feet. These were all things that I was very, very impressed with. And the question for me was, how is Doumbé going to deal with someone that really wants to put him on the floor? And even though that fight was not concluded in the right way, I felt like he showed a lot of the things that we were asking questions about, you know? So now if I'm Pettis, I'm like, do I really want to waste the energy trying to take him down when I could invest that in 5 or 6 more kicks, and that's probably going to do more damage?
How can you explain that the last fight of Anthony Pettis was in 2022? That during the last 2 years he didn't fight.
You know, when it gets to the end of your career, you kind of pick and choose who you're going to fight, because you want someone that's going to inspire you to train hard, right? Like, I'll be honest, I mean, when was the last time I fought? 2011?
Yeah, maybe.
My mouth guard was cage side with me. Like, I'm always ready to fight. Like, it's in us. But what I would also say is, and you know, before I left the UFC, they were offering me different opponents, and they offered me a couple of guys, you know, do you want to fight Joe Lozon? No, I don't want to fight Joe Lozon. I don't want to train to fight Joe Lozon because I like him and I don't want to punch him in the face. You know, like, I expected at some point that myself and either Anthony Pettis or Tyron Woodley would find ourselves in a cage together. That is a fight that would be very exciting. Like, you know, Doumbé is going to train very hard because it's Pettis. You know Pettis is going to train very hard because it's Doumbé. Like, you could pick another guy for Pettis to fight and he's not going to be as interesting. You're not going to get that special performance. And I think a fighter like Doumbé and what he did tonight in front of Pettis, we're going to get vintage Anthony Pettis again. He's going to be in supreme shape. He's going to be jumping off the fence and doing all kinds of mad stuff. So the time out doesn't really bother me. I mean, I don't feel like I've been out a week. You know what I mean? I could step back in and fight straight away. And Pettis has not been out very long. And those skills that he's got, they don't fade, because that's based on fight IQ.
Last question for me. Just a few words about Baki, not about the revenge with Cedric, but is there any negotiation with him because he was in one shot against Cedric?
There have been conversations with Baki. I would definitely like to make that rematch. I think it makes a lot of sense for both of those guys. I don't feel like Baki can walk away and feel like he had a clean victory there. You know, I would say he won the first round. Cedric won the second round. For me, the third round was going in Cedric's direction as well. He was landing the better shots, and then obviously it was stalled very quickly. Baki's on a trajectory to be something very, very special. But then again, so is Doumbé. And whether they meet in their next couple of fights, or whether they meet 2, 3, 4 years down the line, it's going to sell out a football stadium no matter what because of the history and the tension between the two.
Sorry, it needs to be the last question, I'm afraid.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So the fans' response to the main event is mostly that it's a robbery. Why do you think that they think that?
You know, because Magomed did some really good things in the fight. You know, it's an interesting conversation to have around how you value the guillotine attempts versus the power punches landed. Like, for sure, Magomed landed the better punches in the fight. You know, first round and third round, he stepped in with some big shots and he caught his opponent. And there was a moment there where you thought, oh, he's turning the tide, and then he clinched. And that allowed Patchy to kind of, recalibrate himself and get back into the fight. The guillotine attempts were both very close, the second one in particular. But then you look at those last 2 rounds, they were very, very competitive. You know, the striking exchange was quite even. No one really had any great success with the grappling. But the one thing that stood out is that Patchy was holding the center, right? So if you go through the scoring criteria, you've got damage and aggression. If you keep stripping it back and everything's even up to that point, you come to cage control, And for me, that's where Patchy was edging it in those last couple of rounds. I could make an argument to go 3 rounds either direction, but it will come back to a debate of, was the guillotine more valuable than the punches landed? And the guillotine was required to be defended for a good few seconds and was close to finishing the fight, whereas Patchy didn't go down with those shots. They weren't as close to finishing the fight. That's my take on it, and that was John McCarthy's explanation as well, which made a lot of sense. But, I mean, these fights are close. These guys are both superstars, and I could make an argument both ways.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.